Are the markets about to push? That's the question I want to address in this video. I'm going to talk about what's happened with some recent reporting from the US, like inflation numbers, CPI, PPI, FOMC, and then I'm going to show some charts and what I think is basically going on. So I'm going to get straight into it and try and keep it short and sweet, guys. Basically, US inflation falls to 3.3%, which is lower than expected. I said in the morning, not yesterday, but the day before, that I was expecting some sort of catalyst because I think crypto is about to take its next leg up, and I'll show you why I think that. On a chart structure, I've pinned this tweet to my Twitter page. Bitcoin actually is just now holding this level here, which I'll show you in a second. If we look at the 4-hour RSI, it's been like an indicator to come in, and we were just lipping into that on the 4-hourly. And the structure looks very similar to as it did back in the $40,000 range before we had the move up to $70-ish thousand. If we look, there's initial high, a challenge of that high, lows held, breakdowns, find the low, accumulate, break out, initial high, challenge of the high. We didn't actually break the high there, but we did challenge it. Lows held, breakdown, low, accumulation, looking for the breakout. So that's basically where we are. So we had the CPI numbers come in, but then following that we had FOMC, where Jerome Powell actually came through and was more hawkish than expected, saying that with the market had priced in 2, and he basically said there's probably only going to be 1 as far as they see it. But then yesterday, so a day after the FOMC meeting, as reported here by Wizard of Soho, US PPI month over month came in much lower than expected. So the prior month it was 0.2, it was expected at 0.1, came in at minus 0.02, so that's 0.3% lower than expected. The same for core PPI, expected at 0.3, came in at 0, whereas prior was 0.5. This basically means that the producers, it's costing them less to put out goods, and then hopefully that would have a lagging effect on consumer price index. So the producers are paying less, or it's costing them less to produce, so then hopefully that cost gets passed down to the consumer, maybe next month or maybe the month after. Not a macro expert, but that's the way that I interpret this news. Looking at the Bitcoin chart on the hourly here, this green candle here is where we saw the CPI report. This is where before the FOMC, then this is in the FOMC, came down, but then we've had the PPI news yesterday. And as I said, and I showed you the chart a second ago, I just think we're looking like we're ready to pop off here. For Bitcoin, I'm going to show you a few charts. Bitcoin looks like it's getting ready to do something, in my opinion. It could be capitulate. It could be come down, we have gap here. Could come all the way down to 62. I just feel like that it's a pretty obvious play, and I think people are waiting for longs in this area. So I do feel like we're actually going to get a push very soon. The other chart I wanted to talk to you about was this Curve Finance chart. So the founder of Curve Finance supposedly got liquidated on this, flushed down yesterday. And because of that, and something I've said I think will do pretty well this cycle, is the DeFi tokens within ETH. I think ETH is going to have a run up. I don't know when that's going to be quite. I feel like it's the same sort of structure as what we saw with the Bitcoin ETF, the announcement of the ETH ETF. We've come down, we've consolidated, and when we actually get that coming in, we'll probably see some extra inflows for ETH. Cool, ETH pops off, and things within the ETH ecosystem will probably do pretty well. But with Curve Finance specifically struggling, I would be looking for other DeFi tokens in the ETH ecosystem to probably do pretty well. That's what I'd be looking for. Remember, I talked about this long over here on Twitter. We actually talked about closing the long in this area because I thought there was uncertainty. Now I'll be looking to reopen some positions like that. Other tokens that I'm looking at are privacy tokens like Dash. I think Dash's long-term structure is very good. It looks very similar to what Solana did. If we can get some positivity come in for privacy tokens, I think they'll have a good push. The US has been out to block and ban privacy tokens, but I always think there's going to be a market for them. So Dash and Monero, XMR, let's have a little look at Monero as well. I always think there's going to be a market for these. Look, Monero crashed here on the delisting from Binance, and now it's pretty much back at those highs. As I said, there's always going to be a market for privacy tokens. People want to do things in private, whatever that might be. You use your imagination for that. But if you think that the concept of crypto, people thought it was private when it first came out. So the 2013 to 15 sort of cycle, 16, even 17 maybe. People thought, oh, this is a privacy like way that I can deal in private money. We'll go on Silk Road, which was to buy like goods that you can't get anywhere else. You know, if you know what I mean. I don't want to talk about too much on the old YouTube, but people thought it was a private way to trade, buy things that you shouldn't be buying, and there was a big market for it. Yes, it wasn't as big as it is now, but I don't know what the ballpark number was, but let's just say $500 million, maybe more. That's a lot of money. So that means that that's just in a time where the space was like tiny. So as the space grows, there's always going to be at least that amount of people who want to trade doing whatever they do. So their market cap of privacy tokens should be at least 500 mil, but as the space gets bigger, the percentage share, let's say it stays the same, 1% or 2% or 3% of people want to do things that are like not considered correct, then the market cap of the privacy tokens should grow. So I basically think that there's going to be always a market for privacy tokens. Whether you agree with it or not, that's my basic logic on privacy tokens. Going back to ETH quickly, yeah, I think ETH's about to have a move, probably following Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has a big push up, it'll probably lead, and that's what I'm expecting. And I also think XRP looks pretty interesting, guys. And there's one other token I'm going to talk about after XRP. XRP is still sitting within this range. We're in doom and gloom, waiting for the lawsuit to end. Brad Gardenhouse is talking about end of summer. Lots of things happening on the XRP ledger. I talked about it yesterday. We've got the introduction of the stable coin coming. We've got the acquisition of Ripple for Standard Chartered. Ripple are playing the institutional DeFi card, and it's looking pretty positive. And finally, Flare. Flare's something I'm super excited about. Excuse me. We haven't had a lot of decent price action for Flare, but it hasn't really lost any levels. It's just chopped in here, like a tiny, tiny little range of like what, 16% for an altcoin is tiny for the last like 6 or 7 weeks. I think Flare is really teeing up for the next leg up. We've got the beta test, the beta F assets are now available. We've got Layer Cake coming out soon, and they're talking about obviously decentralizing AI and bringing that to Flare as well. So I'm very bullish on Flare. I've messaged the team to see if I can go and help them in any way. So I'm super interested. I want to be in and around projects. I want to know what's going on. I want to help you guys learn. I just love the space. So that's basically where I am. Like, I'm bullish on Flare. This is my take profit level look, by the way. I was talking to a client about it. We've got a bag of Flare together, me and a client. And I was saying, look, we've got a big gap up to about this range, this area here. Yes, this is IOU pricing, so it doesn't really matter too much. But this is where I'd be looking to take some profits off the table with Flare, between 15 and 19 cents. But I do think there's a good chance that we could run all the way up to $1 or so for Flare. And I know that puts it on a massive market cap, but I think it's got the potential. If crypto does what I think it's going to do this cycle, then we've got the potential to do that. So that's basically where I'm standing right now, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Anything that I've missed, or do you disagree with anything? I'd really appreciate your opinions on that, guys. So yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.